Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel this week of January 28th, 2024. You're looking awesome today, if I must say. This week I want to talk about some interesting news and some hope for Gaza and Israel and the Middle East. Spoiler alert, what's the solution for the Middle East? Well, his name is Jesus. Just going to lay it out there. In fact, we're going to start by looking at some Bible prophecy from Isaiah, and then we're going to get into some news stories and some actual testimonies coming out of Gaza and Israel. So let's start by switching over to this view. And right now I've got pulled up here on the screen is Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7. Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7. It says, "For to us," and a lot of people know this verse from Christmas time, but it says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." That's the key verse, the key takeaway for this video. "Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne, over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this." This is an interesting passage that talks about Jesus being born. The government will be on his shoulders. He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. He is the answer for peace in the Middle East. Now, is the government on his shoulders? Well, no. I mean, a lot of government is based off of Judeo-Christian principles. The Western world, we have our judicial system based off of principles from the Bible. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. The Ten Commandments, justice, free speech, innocent till proven guilty. All of these things come from the biblical background. So yes, he is influencing government right now, today, but is the government on his shoulders? No. That's a prophecy for something that's to come. So I wanted to take a look at a couple stories that are interesting for Gaza right now. And, we have huge protests going on, people responding to the horror of the response to the Gaza terrorist attacks. What is happening right now in Gaza? There's been some interesting reports that I just want to bring up. And I think there's hope for some change of attitude because Israel is fighting Hamas. That's their main modus operandi, is to fight Hamas. They want to eliminate Hamas, which is a terrorist organization which has been absconding of money that's given from international governments to Gaza to help take care of the people. It's been stealing that money and using it for war, basically, and tunnels, and attacks against their neighbors, right, to eliminate Israel. They've stated that's been previously in their constitution. Some interesting things are happening right now in Gaza, and I just wanted to take a look at some of these things. Okay, this video popped up this past week of Palestinians in Gaza calling out for an end to Hamas. So I just want to take a look at the video here. So it's an interesting video. Apparently what they're saying is, if I go back here, there's another video where they've put a translation. Down with Hamas. This is within Palestine, within the Gaza Strip. People saying, chanting this. Now there's some people saying that this is not what's actually being said. That this is a IDF propaganda piece that they've overlaid this video, and those people aren't actually chanting, they're just sitting there. But what's interesting is in this one, you can actually see, you'll see this guy here is shaking his fist with the chants, and you'll see some other people here that are doing that as well. So they are actually chanting something. Right there, chanting, and there's some over here. Oh, my mouse wasn't on the screen. Yeah, there and over here. So you see them there, and you see them over here. So they are chanting something. Maybe it is a deceptive video that's not real, but there's more of them. Okay, so this was a more recent chant. So this one is the largest protest so far, they're saying. Calling on Hamas to end the war occurs today as residents leave Khan Uni, and they chant, "O Netanyahu, O Sinwar," which is the Hamas leader. Enough with war, enough with destruction. So they're calling on both Israel and Hamas to stop the war. This is very positive if people within Gaza are starting to turn against Hamas. Now, there was also another video. Let me see if I can find it. This one. I think this is the one. No, that's not it. Okay, so this is another one. They're saying, we want peace, we want peace, we want ceasefire, we want peace. There was another video that somebody said was propaganda. It's this one here. So in this one, they said they were demanding the end of Hamas and for the hostages to be released. Apparently, this is what they were actually chanting. We want to go back to Beit Leah. We want to go back to the north. We want to go back to Jabalia. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing that for sure. The sign says yes to hostage release. Beit Leah is where IOF kidnapped dozens of Palestinian men during their fake Hamas surrender. You know, what they're saying is this is all just Israeli propaganda. But a couple of these that are clearly not propaganda. So there's some good things happening within Gaza. There's some turning happening, which is great because overwhelming the support has been from Gaza for Hamas, which is a terrorist organization and has been recognized as a terrorist organization by all the Western countries. Gaza is turning. There are people within saying we need this war to stop. We need Hamas to stop. That's awesome. Now, on the Christian front, there's also things happening. This was off of CBN News. This guy that you see on your screen right now, Taser Tassada, he was a sharpshooter and an aide to Yasser Arafat. And he's now working in Gaza as a Christian, doing this Hope of Peace Foundation. And so they're on the ground helping the people of Gaza. So listen to what he says. This is amazing.
Many Muslims are looking for an alternative to Islam. And so naturally, my team are always promoting Christianity and their life whenever it's safe. And so we are looking at a good revival going on already in the Gaza Strip due to what has happened really. Despite of the destruction that is taking place, I believe God have a purpose to get the Palestinians in Gaza wake up and look at a different alternative to what they believe.
How about during the war as it's continuing? Our hearts turning. What do you see happening?
So. I just got a report from one of my team members that about 200 Gazans gave their heart to Jesus in one lump sum.
That's
because
amazing.
The Lord appeared to them in visions and dreams, and they were hugging each other and rejoicing, and realized that all of them had the same vision that each one of them had. And so obviously the Lord is doing his work, and the believers around also in the land are doing their work.
That's amazing. God appeared he said 200 people came to the Lord at one time, having visions of Jesus and realizing that they all had similar visions. Now I've heard of this in other countries, in Muslim countries, where people are randomly having visions of Jesus and who Jesus is. Dreams and visions. God is doing something amazing here. Now, that's Gaza. So Gaza is Muslim, very strict. They don't really allow other religions, from what I've heard. So it's difficult that these guys are even working there as Christians. There are Christians there, and God is at work. So this is what I mean by Jesus is the answer to peace, because Jesus can enter in to a Muslim culture and speak truth as himself and kind of be disassociated from his Jewishness, because he spoke to the Gentiles. Like when the church started, it started as a Jewish Gentile mix, and God he tore the veil, he opened the door, he made it level ground at the cross for everybody. He showed that vision to Peter with the blanket with all the different animals that they're forbidden to eat in the Jewish culture. And he said, take and eat. And this was God saying, I am opening the gospel through Jesus. I'm opening the good news of salvation to the whole world, not just the Jews. That's who Jesus is. He brought the gospel to the nations. He brought the good news to the hearts of people, changing it forever, that you don't have to worship on this mountain or in this temple. You can be anywhere in the world and worship God, because God is right here with us at all times. We can worship him in spirit and in truth by the Holy Spirit. So how about Israel? So this is Gaza, we've seen, where Gaza's having experiences with God. But what about Israel? Now that's a little different, because they have a locked-in Messiah route before them, but Jesus, they've had 2,000 years of rejecting Jesus as the Messiah. So what's happening for Israel? Like how can Israel receive peace through Jesus? Well, there's a messianic movement, Messianic Jews who have come to realize that Jesus is the Messiah. It's growing. There's a lot of stats on different numbers of people coming to know Jesus in the Jewish culture and in Israel. So there's a channel that I want to recommend that you follow called So Be It. It also has these stories, and this is a story of a rabbi that worked in the rabbinical court for the Israeli army, who had an experience with Jesus.
I meet a bunch of, sort of Orthodox guys, but I go home one day and Adele has invited this lady, her name's Judy.
Adele is his wife, just for a little background.
To come round for tea. So I'm sitting there with Judy, and she tells us something that I didn't expect her to say. She says, well, Adele, have you ever read the Tanakh for yourselves? Now, we're Orthodox Jews. Okay. I've never had somebody ask me if I've read the Bible, and in fact, a lot of people who aren't Jewish will probably look at us and think to themselves, well, of course they've read the Bible, they're Orthodox Jews. But the reality is we've never had. We've never just sat down and read through the Bible for ourselves.
The Hebrew scriptures.
Right.
Yeah.
We just sort of like read a bit and then lots of commentary.
Okay.
But no just reading.
Which I think is typical, yes.
Right. So we took on the challenge and decided to have a race. Right? Who's going to read through the Bible first? So we start to read through more and more and more. And eventually I get to, drum roll, Isaiah 53, right? Now, for me, that chapter was just sort of like, it was just annoying. Like,
So Isaiah 53, we're going to come back to that and take a look at it right after this, because it sets the stage, and it's what this so be it, this guy sitting here on the left on the screen, he's doing outreaches in Tel Aviv and other areas of Israel, just talking to people about Jesus, and he often brings up Isaiah 53 in his talks, you know, straight out of the Jewish scriptures, and says, what does this mean? And it gets them to think, Jesus. This sounds an awful lot like Jesus, and we'll read it later.
Like, I'd read through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd read through a lot of Isaiah, didn't understand anything, but that chapter bothered me. So I went off to Judy to get an explanation. Now, Judy is actually a Jewish believer in Jesus, but had never told me of
You didn't know it?
No.
Wow.
Because she was a little afraid to tell us, because, you know, I had this big Orthodox beard, I had, you know, the head psyche.
Yep.
Adele was, you know, covered from head to toe. So that was kind of like the way that we were living. And so she was a little afraid of it.
Yeah.
So we decide, so I go to her house and I ask her what's Isaiah 53. And she's been praying that God would tell her when to tell us about Jesus. So,
He told you instead of her.
right.
Directly.
So I knock on that door and say, explain Isaiah 53. And for her, it's the sign she's been waiting for.
Yeah.
So she brings me in, sits me down, and starts to tell me about Jesus. Now I'm sitting there going, oy vey, you know, I can't possibly believe this.
Yeah.
Because while my connection to Judaism has changed, my connection to my identity hasn't.
Right.
And Jesus and Jewish, no.
Right.
But as she's speaking, I realize, I ask myself, why am I saying no? Because I've read through the Quran, I've read through the Gita, I've lived an Orthodox life, I've lived a secular life. Like, why am I saying no specifically to this? And I realize it's just because my mom told me. And I think to myself, well, that's not a good enough reason.
Yep.
So there in that room, a little frustrated and fighting with myself, I turned to God and I said, okay, I'm sick and tired of this. Just show me the truth. And the moment that I prayed that prayer, I had that same picture of the face of Jesus appear before me.
Wow.
As it had when I was 18. And I knew that I knew that I knew.
So, interesting thing about his story, he also had a vision of Jesus when he was 18 years old that he didn't know what it meant. But when he prayed this prayer, it came back again, exactly. So he knew. It was a God moment.
That Jesus was real.
Wow.
So then I've got to go home to Adele, right? So I thank Judy, I prayed this prayer with her, but I now need to go and tell my beautiful wife that he's the Messiah. How do I do that? Right? So I start walking home. And about halfway home, I realize, I don't know how I'm going to do this. You know, I sort of have this freak out moment. I've got to have a plan. I've got to have a way of saying it.
Yeah.
And so I walk into the house, and this was my plan. I burst into the bedroom where Adele was sitting reading, and I said, sweetheart, something terrible has happened. Jesus is the Messiah. And she looks up to me, and I think she's going to scream, shout, something. She looks up to me and she goes, oh, okay. And I was like, what do you mean okay? Like, I wanted like a reaction, something. But she's just like, look, calm down, we'll get a book, you know. And I wanted to have this whole conversation with her. She didn't want to like get into it. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go get a book. Now, you may be asking yourself at this moment, where does an Orthodox Jew serving in the head rabbinical corps of the Israeli army go to get himself a book about Jesus, the New Testament?
Right.
Well, lo and behold, in my base, we had the book, we had the New Testament, because soldiers swearing into the military have to hold the Bible, right? So all the Jewish soldiers hold the Tanakh, and the Christian soldiers, of which there are some,
Okay, I get it.
get a New Testament.
Wow.
So I stole a New Testament from the
Stole the
rabbinical corps
Bible.
of the Israeli army to give to Adele.
Right.
So I steal it, give it to her, she starts reading. So about a week later, I come home from the base, and there is Adele sitting in our living room, having just finished the book of Matthew. And she has tears in her eyes. So I go in and I say, sweetheart, what's wrong? Why are you crying, right? She's in tears. And she looks up to me and says something that I'll never forget. She said, he was such a good man. Why has no one ever told us this story before? And I realized that there we were in Jerusalem where Jesus walked and talked and lived and died and rose from. We lived there and no one had heard the story. And at that moment, I kind of freaked out and I realized I've got to tell people.
That's right.
Because, and this is the key, it's not a philosophy.
Yeah.
It's not just a cool thing to be part of. Jesus is actually real, and that actually makes the difference to everything. So that's how it happened.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Here is this channel. I'll have it linked.
Touch my heart.
Oh, so be it. This guy, he does lots of outreaches. He does lots of videos of just talking to people, testimonies, meeting people on the street, asking them questions. Have you ever heard of Jesus? Who is Jesus? You know, and some people are like, no, I've heard something about him, but not much. And it's amazing. It's amazing, right? And this guy, Yoel, he lived in Jerusalem, where Jesus walked, where he died, where he was crucified, where he rose again, right there. And he had not heard the message of Jesus. And this is what I'm saying is the gospel of peace, the Prince of Peace, is the answer for the Middle East. And it's going to happen eventually. It's going to happen. But this is something we can pray for as Christians, is just pray for peace of the Middle East. Pray for Jesus to be revealed. And here's Isaiah 53. I'm just going to bring this up now. So this is the passage that got him. It says, "Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" He grew up before him like a tender root, and like a root out of the dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain, like one from whom people hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities, and the punishment that brought us peace was on him. By his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. Yet who of his generation protested? For he was cut off from the land of the living, killed. For the transgressions of the people he was punished. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. So yeah, he died on a cross with the wicked, and he was buried in a rich man's tomb, a rich man that donated his tomb to him. Though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth, yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And though the Lord makes his life an offering for sin, he will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death, and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many, and made intercession for transgressors. So it talks about his death, it talks about his resurrection, it talks about him being not a stately person, that he was silent before his accusers, these are all things that Jesus fulfilled. And it says, though he was cut off from the land of living, it says, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. So he will be made alive again, which is the resurrection, which happened. All of these things happened. And what makes Jesus such a unique history itself is based around his life. Our calendar's based on it. It's his story. It's his life. And why is his life so impactful? It's because he laid down his life and rose again from the dead. He took the sins of the world upon him, and he made it level ground for everybody. And this is why Jesus is the answer for peace in the Middle East. We need to pray for peace in the Middle East, because only through Jesus can people actually come full-heartedly to somebody and say, he's a leader I can trust. He is the Messiah, the chosen one of God to die for our sins. And this door is open to Muslims, Jew, Greek, Gentile, slaves, free, rich, poor, every nationality, every person, every skin color, every gender, doesn't matter. Jesus is the answer. So pray for the peace of Jerusalem, pray for the peace of the Middle East, and let's pray that Jesus can be revealed there sooner than later, because it'll change everything. Amen. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Be blessed, you guys. Please like and subscribe and share. Hit that like button. Make a comment if you got something to say. I'd love to see your comments, and we'll respond to some of them depending on how many there are. Help me get this channel up and visible to as many people as possible. Thank you for tuning in. Bless you guys.